Recipient of a knighthood in 2005 and the winner of 4 television BAFTAs, 7 National Television Awards and 4 British Comedy Awards, the much-loved Sir David Jason is the very definition of a national treasure. A few days before this video was made, Sir David turned 80 years old, so I thought this the perfect time to pay tribute to this icon of British television, who also happens to be one of my personal comedy heroes.
There wasn't any question in my mind that David was going to be a massive comedy star. It was perfectly plain to anyone who'd ever studied comedy.
It's all there, all the various sort of ingredients of how to entertain someone are there, bottled up in this little body. Little squat, hairy body.
We're on a winner here, Tree, all right? Play it nice and cool, son. Nice and cool, you know what I mean?
Born David White on February the 2nd, 1940 in Edmonton, London, David Jason took inspiration for his stage name from his love of the film Jason and the Argonauts. There is an urban myth that has been circulating for many years that the name Jason was taken in tribute to David's twin brother, who died in infancy, but that's just that, a myth, and it's been denied by Sir David himself. David's elder brother, Arthur White, born in 1933, is also an actor, and from an early age David was keen to follow in his brother's footsteps. However, after leaving school, David worked as an electrician for a few years in partnership with a friend. It was during this time that David met an East End builder called Derek Hockley, who would become the inspiration for Sir David's portrayal of Del Boy in Only Fools and Horses many years later. David Jason's first acting break came in 1967 when he was cast in the fondly remembered children's television sketch show Do Not Adjust Your Set. David was part of a troupe which included Denise Coffey and future Pythons Michael Palin, Eric Idle and Terry Jones. It's fascinating to wonder what might have happened if David Jason had become part of the Monty Python team. Would we ever have seen him as Del Boy? Likely not. However, this was fated not to be, as David Jason's style of comedy acting was very different to that employed by the 3 future Pythons. He excelled at physical comedy, a skill which came in very handy indeed in 1989 when the actor was required to fall through a bar for a certain comedy show that you might remember. After being extremely close to getting the part of Lance Corporal Jones in Dad's Army, the still not quite 30 David Jason got another chance to show off his talent for playing much older characters when he was cast in the Ronnie Barker showcase Hark at Barker in 1969. David was pretty much unrecognisable as the ancient gardener Dithers, a role he would revisit in the 1972 Ronnie Barker series His Lordship Entertains. This partnership with the legendary Ronnie Barker would, of course, go on to even greater heights when the pilot episode of Open All Hours was broadcast in 1973. David Jason excelled alongside his mentor Barker in Open All Hours, making the shy, yearning errand boy Granville a character that you really cared about. Viewers were desperate for Granville to finally meet the love of his life, but his grasping Uncle Arkwright was destined to always get in the way. After the first series proper of Open All Hours was broadcast in 1976, there would not be a second series until 5 years later in 1981. By this time, of course, David Jason had just been cast in a role that would go on to define his entire career. The final episode of Open All Hours was broadcast in October 1985, and it seemed that Arkwright's was finally closed for good. However, in 2013 the doors reopened and we were able to catch up with Granville, now the owner of Arkwright's, in Still Open All Hours. It was nice to see that the more traditional style of comedy was still popular amongst viewers, so much so in fact that Still Open All Hours is still going strong at the time of making this video. Although Granville now displays all of the money-grabbing traits of his late uncle, Granville is still a character we care about and want to succeed, and this is all down to the talent and innate likability of David Jason. Now, of course, we can't have a video looking at the career of Sir David Jason without mention of a certain Derek Edward Trotter of Nelson Mandela House, Peckham. It was a role of a lifetime in a comedy series that has gone beyond mere popularity and has instead attained iconic status. But before we concentrate on Only Fools and Horses, let's take a look at some of the other wonderful roles that David Jason has played during his stellar career.
Hello, Smiler. You're looking better.
Oh,
Ooh, nice grapes.
what I want's a smoke. Give me a cigar like last time, eh?
Yes, of course. But I don't smoke those usual mild cigars anymore. I've changed to these Castella Classic, which are that bit wider. Open wide. Pity. Because that extra width means even greater mild, smooth smoking enjoyment for about the same price. You'd love them if you weren't so set in your ways.
Castella Classic.
Set in your ways.
The choice is wider.
How's Edwina settling in then, Headmaster?
Well, her Latin's a little weak.
Oh, that's funny, because I used to speak it like a native.
A small increase this term, I'm afraid. Not enough to affect your mortgage, though.
No, it's my husband's Abbey National Current Account. Checkbook, cash card, just like a bank's. Only some of us can apply for £100 check card.
And no transaction charges, and they pay me interest 12 times a year.
Which means we can afford to give Edwina nothing but the best.
Yeah. So you can get her a new tennis bat for a start, all right?
Abbey National, the most current account.
Don't worry, I haven't forgot all of the fantastic voices that David Jason has provided for animated characters over the years, such as Danger Mouse and Count Duckula. It's just that I'm going to save those for a future video dedicated to his voiceover work. On the 8th of September 1981, the very first episode of a brand new comedy series called Only Fools and Horses was broadcast on BBC One. Written by Citizen Smith creator John Sullivan and set in the South London borough of Peckham, the series centred on the wheeler dealings of market trader Derek Trotter, his younger brother Rodney and their elderly granddad. Looking back now, it's hard to imagine that Only Fools and Horses was almost cancelled after the first series due to less than expected ratings. Just think of all those classic moments we would have been denied and wonderful memories we could never have shared. As mentioned earlier, David Jason based many of Dell's physical and vocal mannerisms on that of Derek Hockley, a builder from the East End of London whom David came across when looking for work as an electrician. The shoulder movements, the neck thrusts, the little tugs on the end of the sleeves, these all came from David Jason's memories of Derek Hockley. Along with the knowledge that Only Fools and Horses was almost cancelled after one series, it's also inconceivable to think now that David Jason almost never got the opportunity to play his finest ever role. Jim Broadbent, who would of course go on to play Bent Copper Slater, was the original choice for the part of Dell, and N. Reitel was also considered. Writer John Sullivan wasn't convinced that David was the right man to play a tougher character. However, thankfully he was convinced by producer Ray Butt, and the rest, as Dell would say, was epidemic. David Jason is arguably the most beloved British television star of all time. While he's much admired for his considerable acting talent, I believe it's his real-life charm and affability that have made him one of our greatest national treasures. After all, do you know anyone who doesn't like David Jason? Thanks for watching Stuview TV. If you've liked this video, then please feel free to like, comment, share and subscribe. It's much appreciated and it really does help the channel grow. Thank you.